Hi, my name is Ozzie Jurock. I'm the author and host rather of OzBuzz, and this morning we have with us Dr. Mike Racich, who is a dentist extraordinaire, a raconteur, an all-around good guy, and he has some of his books talk about painless dentistry, so I'm really interested in that. I'm sure our listeners are too. Mike, welcome, and tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you once again for spending some time with me, Ozzie. I always appreciate our chance to have a conversation together. I'm a Vancouver boy. As we are looking out the window right now and speaking, I'm looking right at the place where I was born, St. Paul's Hospital.
Yeah.
Born and bred in Vancouver. I have traveled, of course. I practice dentistry, have been practicing for 36 years. Thoroughly enjoy what I do. The painless part, well, I don't know about that. You know, we try our best. We all try our best, and every colleague of mine, of course, does that. But yes, I'm gonna enjoy practicing dentistry. And
well, I know you teach also methods on making it easier, and you also have written a book that says how a person that is being in the dentist chair should act in order to be as painless as possible.
Yeah, most definitely. I've written 4 books actually. All my books are called The Basic Rules of. The first 3 books are technical, they're directed towards dentists. Book number 4 is called The Basic Rules of Being a Dental Patient. And it's directed and written from the point of view, I wrote it from the point of view of actually being a patient, actually being like a medical patient, which
right.
Of course, 61 years old. I'm doing my share of visits to the physician, and the book's written like, what do I look for when I interact with a healthcare professional, or for that matter, any type of professional, including realtors. I mean, what do we really look for, and how do we snuff out the top-notch people, and how do we sniff out or eliminate the people that are maybe not up to par with the rest of their peers?
Well, and that makes sense. We don't sometimes, we just take somebody's word for it, and yet we should do some background checks on everybody, right? Because sometimes we put our money at risk, and sometimes we put our thinking at risk, but quite often we put our very well-being at risk, and certainly people are scared of the dentist chair. Maybe the whole idea of painless is really referring to the bill. Is that maybe the biggest the biggest pain that we get from dentists?
Well, if we're smiling at the end of it all, then it's not painless. It's a joy for the well-being that it's bringing us all.
But you know, to me, when I look at you, you have you seem to manage your life very well. You're sort of laid back, you're laureate, you're lawful, sort of to see yourself as leading edge, and you certainly are. When I look at your travels around the world, and I mean places like Iceland and making speeches everywhere, certainly people like to listen to you and make an understanding as to what it's all about.
Yes, most definitely. I've been most fortunate to be able to travel not only for personal reasons but professional reasons as well. And it's nice to be able to go around and share ideas. Kind of going back to that idea of the basic rules, and what you alluded to about what I look for in a healthcare provider, or for that matter, even a realtor. Everything comes down to basic rules, and even in dentistry or in healthcare, there are some basic rules that can be utilized for people to look for someone. And the internet and the various search engines actually help us to do that. The dental one, the Google dental one, the medical one the main one is called PubMed, PUBMED.
That's important. PUBMED.com.
Believe so, or .org possibly.
Just go for PubMed. And then
PubMed. P as in Peter.
And those are more professionals on there, or?
Well, no. What it is just it's a huge database. It's all peer-reviewed publications. In other words, you know, somebody's written something, and a bunch of people have looked at it and scrutinized it. So the information there is going to be fairly reliable, and it's so simple to do. It's basic rule. That's why I kind of came back to it in this conversation.
Is that just for dentists, or for
anybody can do it? Yeah. Anybody can do it, and the key is to type in the word review. And what review means is that a group of people have actually taken the time to look at the information out there and summarize it, review it, and put it in a paper. And so those are the articles that we want. So for example, let's say somebody wants to know about a certain herb. Chances are maybe somebody's written a paper on it. So they could write in herb X review in the little search box in PubMed, and some information will come up. You click on it, and then there'll be summary. They call it abstracts, but a summary will come up, and it's usually about 10 sentences long. And then the key to the summary is the last sentence or two. And it'll either be thumbs up or thumbs down. In other words, herb X is really good, or herb X is a dud. and it's very practical, very practical.
Well, particularly if you have a lot of reviews, and then you can make up your own mind as to what the writer's mindset was. Maybe he just wants to get even with the guy or whatever. But that's why when you have a lot of people reviewing.
That's true.
No, that's good advice. Because, I mean, you say that dentistry has come a long way in becoming somewhat painless, but the patient is still a patient, a unique individual that you have to treat on an individual basis.
Definitely. Again, without trying to get technical here, the buzzword in the medical world, dental world, is informed consent. Patients have to be informed, and
this is gonna hurt,
and they have to give consent. So in other words, the healthcare provider, dentist, physician, whomever, has to give options, and one of the options is no treatment. And so what happens if we don't do anything? And of course, then there's, depending on the situation, there can be 5 options or 10 options or 2 options, but it's incumbent on the healthcare provider to provide options and then get the consent from the patient or guardian, and then proceed accordingly.
Well, that's, I think, why you need to trust your professional. No? And to trust, you have to trust utterly. You know, I mean,
Definitely.
This procedure is 10,000, this procedure is 2,000.
Definitely.
And, you know, does it have to be like magic, the $10,000 one, right? And of course I joke, but I know that with you it isn't. It is really, you care about the individual. One thing I always found amazing being in your chair, you keep talking, and you know I can't answer.
That's right. And everybody wonders whether my wife even talks to me. Maybe this is my opportunity to finally get my words in.
You're helplessly, sitting there, right? So, but you have something that's Penfield's homunculus. What the heck is that?
Okay, you keep on going back to the Painless. Penfield was the neurologist, a famous neurologist that mapped a lot of the sensory parts of the brain. He was at the University of Montreal, University of McGill. And the bottom line is, Penfield's homunculus is a funny-looking person, and the proportion of the body is proportional to the sensory. In other words, the head is big, the lips are big, the nose is big, the ears are big, the hands are big, the feet are big, the rest of the body is this skinny little thing. So you have this funny-looking little character, but it shows the distribution of nerves and sensation. Well, guess what? The mouth is huge. So the mouth is actually a defense organ. It's a survival organ. So one can, after have a few sensations there that are unpleasant. So fortunately, our profession, dentistry, has gone strides in 2018. Unbelievable how the comfort levels, whether people want sedation dentistry, which is a good thing for those people that want it, or maybe some kind of medications, simpler medications other than sedation, heavy sedation to get through dentistry, or maybe they just go to someone that just likes to talk and distract them.
Well, the thing though, it is, as you say, it's. I look at my father. He had false teeth at age 45, right? That was sort of the in Germany then, maybe at the time, was simply he didn't look after him as well, and so things have come. I am blessed of having teeth for much longer with your help. But the whole idea of your teaching around the world means that you have something to teach. What do you talk about to other dentists?
What I talk to about other dentists is basic rules. Generally, I talk about comprehensive oral care, facial pain, reconstructive dentistry, how other things like root canals and implants and everything else can help provide the foundation so that care can be done from a comprehensive point of view. But at the end of the day, the idea is to try to get across the basic rules. Anything, if it's too complex, is like a real estate deal, for example. The more complexity there is in the deal, maybe it's not a good idea to proceed. Oftentimes things need to be simply stated. Not that dentistry can be simple, but a lot of the ideas can be distilled down the basic rules are followed, and then it can go on from there. So that's the main message I try to get across. Of course, depending on the audience and the sophistication of the dental audience, obviously we bump up the ante, and then we can get into some nitty gritty and complexities. Just like, for example, a real estate deal, you get to a certain level where things become the finances and everything else. But generally speaking, it's to try to get broad-based ideas over that make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, how did you get into being a dentist? Why dentistry?
Why dentistry? Wow, that's a good question. I always wanted to be a dentist since I was a little guy. I fortunately was blessed with having strong teeth. I didn't have a lot of work done either on my baby teeth or my permanent teeth. We had a very friendly practitioner that my parents went to, and I was allowed to kind of look around and watch things. As I went through life, through high school and all that, I always did well in school. I'm from a commercial fishing background, and the independence of commercial fishing and the independent lifestyle that a dentist gives, plus being academically sound and being able to build on all that, it just all seemed to fit quite nicely.
Yeah, well, commercial fishing, I guess that gives you sort of an independent kind of income, right? You make a lot of money quickly, but there's some danger involved, right?
That's right. If you don't save for the rainy day. If you don't save for the rainy day, it could be not a good thing.
Yeah, it's funny in our in teaching clubs, we see a lot of people in the movie industry, like they make a lot of money in sort of 3 months. Let's say you're a cameraman and movie is finished and you make nothing for 2 months. And so a lot of industries have to sort of balance it out, and commercial fishing is one of them. One of our members actually is a crab fisherman who can make a lot of money or lose a lot of money, and it's pretty dangerous. So when he hits, it hits big, but there may be months in between when there's nothing, right?
Well, what my father's generation did, and those gentlemen fished longer time than, of course, is allowed now on our British Columbia coast, just because of conservation and whatnot. But it actually was quite common for my father's generation and the generation before that to actually invest in real estate. That's what most of them did. The idea was to try to make as much as they could, of course, support their families, and then they had independent little businesses. What they was popular for them to do in the 50s and 60s was to buy small apartment buildings.
Sure. Yeah. And that, what a great idea, right?
Well, they sure look like geniuses now.
So 10 suites in the 50s were about 90,000.
Yeah.
Maybe, right? And now a little bit more than that, right? Yeah, several %. Well, the thing is, you've done well in real estate. You sold your house at a darn fortune. You bought in the right place and sold at the right time. It is, I firmly believe that timing is everything. In my book, forget about location. Location
True.
is, if you, depending on when you bought and when you sold, you could have done very well or very, very poorly.
Well, just as you know, I have made investments following a lot of your ideas. The main idea, basic rule, early on that I got from you: am I a shark? Am I an investor or am I a flipper?
Yeah.
And of course, I decided which one I was, and I'm in the investor class and very cautious. But thanks to good, solid advice, basic rules that I gleaned from you, that I've been very fortunate.
Well, I've written actually at length about that thing, because before you really know who you are or what you want to achieve, it's very difficult to make a decision. Should I buy in Vancouver or Toronto? I mean, well, what are you going to buy? Where are you going to? It's never the area or the market. You don't buy the market, you buy a property in a given market. And whether you flip or whether you keep it for long term are two different animals.
Exactly.
Right? So yeah, no, it's very true. Well, and on the dentist side, the high quality services, can they be quickly done, or is a low fee routinely possible?
Oh boy! Nowadays, that becomes a little bit of a slippery slope, because with all the technology, one is easily seduced in thinking that with all this technology we can drive the cost down, get high quality, and get it quickly done. And it's starting to happen, even in medicine for sure. Look at CAT scans, and I just was speaking to a gentleman. I was actually with him yesterday. He decided it was his choice. His lower limb, his lower left leg, knee down, he was having not quite gangrene, but he was having another condition, and so he opted for an amputation. This was about 6 weeks ago, and I thought, oh boy, where's this going to go, and all this sort of stuff. You know what? He's walking on his prosthetic already.
Amazing.
And that's unbelievable. So so there's an example of that. But it's the old Picasso story, whether this actually happened or not. It's the old Picasso story where somebody goes up to him and says, "Can you sketch me?" He sketches. How much? You got to be kidding. Yeah. He says, "You only took you a few minutes." He said, "No, that took a lifetime."
Yeah.
And so that dentistry is a lot like that. It's the quality. It takes time. It needs to be customized.
Sure.
A simple job, of course, if we can keep the cost down, it can be done quickly. But for more comprehensive work, it usually needs a little bit more, and it's usually going to be a little bit more involved. It's a service industry. We pay for what we get in a service industry.
And certainly if we have implants done, they have to be done, and over months they have to heal, and there's a lot of things involved.
And I'd like to remind your listeners right now, there's a big difference between the two words cheap and inexpensive.
Yeah, of course.
I strongly recommend the listeners stay away from cheap dentistry. Inexpensive maybe.
But what is cheap dentistry?
Cheap is cheap. It's inferior products. It's done, unfortunately. A crown is not a crown is not a crown is not a crown. With the beautiful materials we have amazing synthetic material, like porcelain materials right now. And the one popular product is a classification called zirconia. Well, all zirconia is not the same product. There's a way of watering it down, right?
It's not a diamond if it's a, what do you call it? Or zirconia or something.
Exactly. So it's the same thing.
Well, so when you have sort of you have strep throat versus cancer, that's sort of, excuse me, that's sort of the same thing, right? You have to first of all analyze what it is. Right?
Exactly. Strep throat is, fortunately, can be inexpensively treated and quickly, and can be identified with a culture swab. Cancer, on the other hand, could be a simple diagnosis for nothing's ever simple in cancer diagnosis, but if it's a mole on the skin, for example, that doesn't look very good, well, maybe that's a quicker diagnosis. But if it's an internal problem and it takes a lot of time to try to figure out where the source of pain, for example, is coming from, that's going to take some time, and that's going to cost some money.
Yeah, and of course, and you need to look after your health. How often is cancer prevalent in a mouse?
Oops.
Yeah.
I'm speechless on that one. I don't know the answer to that. All dentists are trained to look for oral cancer as part of a routine checkup examination. All you listeners out there, if you haven't gone to your dentist in the last year or so, go. If for nothing else, an oral cancer screen. And depending on what's seen there are some various tools that most dentists have in their offices that they can then either screen for it or refer appropriately for a biopsy.
Nip it in the bud early.
Definitely. Oral cancer is not fun. It can be very invasive, and we don't need to discuss.
No, you get into it early. Yeah. Well, it's funny. My wife and I we watch a show called Trust Me, I'm a Doctor. It's sort of a British show, and they sort of tackle all the, you shouldn't be in the sun, and they find out, no, you should actually be in the sun, maybe not between 12 and 1, but you should be on it a lot more than we all hiding now for all these fears out there. So they're tackling the holy cows. And there's always this or that organization that you never heard of, or that I never heard of. They're making a claim, or they're saying this study or this organization says such and such, particularly on the environment. I always take issue. You're always quoting somebody that you never heard of, and you can't find them anywhere. So what study, what date, where to read it? Is that all at your website there?
Well, you can go on my website, and I'll have links. The two main.
What is your website?
Oh, my website is www.drracich, drracich.ca, drracich.ca. Again, it's PubMed. PubMed's the main one. What we discussed before. It's a quick and easy screening tool that any person can do. Any person. The one other thing I'd like to add here. Let's say somebody actually does that. Let's say they go on PubMed and they get this page that comes up, this paragraph. One of the things that they can do, if they're savvy with computers, they can copy it or forward it to their physician or dentist or whatever else. But it's so easy. Just take a screenshot and just forward it along to your healthcare provider. Any healthcare provider should be able to look at that. And then,
what do you mean a screenshot? I use my iPhone?
Just use your iPhone.
Really?
Yeah, just use your iPhone, and it's usually good enough quality that the healthcare provider could then look at it, and I think that a solid, reputable healthcare provider will give a legitimate answer to that. That's the first line that I would do. In terms of dentistry, there's always the Canadian Dental Association, and then of course the College of Dental Surgeons I'm in British Columbia, but any provincial college would be good sources for how to follow up with appropriate evidence-based information.
So if I want to learn more, the book that you recommend we read is?
In dentistry?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a little bit biased.
Yeah,
of course. You can read my books, of course.
Yeah.
The Basic Rules of being a dental patient is a
the other three that you have, they're more, if you're a dentist, then that's really of value to you.
Sure. The other books for the listeners here, they're called The Basic Rules of Oral Rehabilitation. The second book is called The Basic Rules of Occlusion. Our word for occlusion, that means bites, the way teeth come together. And then my last book is The Basic Rules of Facially Generated Treatment Planning. So what's facially generated treatment planning? It means that the dentistry doesn't look fake. Good dentistry should not look fake. It should be aesthetic, not cosmetic. Aesthetic dentistry is using the person's natural beauty, and no matter how white and bright somebody wants to get, it should just melt into that person's face. The dentist at that point and the dental team is an artist. So it's aesthetic dentistry. So that's what facially generated treatment planning is on. So for you listeners out there, if your friend is smiling at you and it looks like they just had some dentistry done, it's not aesthetic dentistry.
Or if their teeth glow in the dark,
it's maybe not what you want to, or maybe you do. I don't know.
Okay, so I want to buy this book. Where do I go?
Where do you go? My publisher is Palmieri Publishing. Palmieri, Palmeri Publishing.
We don't really care about him, but where do I get the book? Is it on Amazon, or is it on?
Oh yeah, okay. So the main source is Palmieri Publishing, but the last book, my fourth book, is actually on Amazon. So just go on Amazon, type in Racich.
But for the user, is it?
Yes, yeah. You just go on. The actual hard copy is I think it's $10 on Amazon. But I also have an audio version of The Basic Rules of Oral Rehabilitation. Again, I think it's only about $10 or $20. You get it through Amazon.
Is that on Audible then?
It's on Audible, yes.
I think that's the future. I noticed certainly my books, we all have put them into Audible, and they're outselling,
Oh, definitely.
10 to 1. And the whole world is changing dramatically. We have our Outlook conferences, and we create 5 CDs for people that want to listen to them.
Sure.
And we would sell maybe 40 of those, after the conference the day after. Now we're putting everything on a USB. And we sell 200 of them. And the difference is that people can pop it in their car, they can pop it in their computer to listen to what they want, in a certain way. So life's changing.
Well, this month, November, I just have another article in a peer-reviewed journal, in the Journal of Prosthetic Dentistry. For those listeners, if they want their dentist to look it up, it's on occlusion, bites, and facial pain. Yeah. So that's in the Journal of Prosthetic Dentistry. But leading on to what we were just talking about, I've also done some recent work with a group called Dental Town. And Dental Town is an online-based dental organization, quite popular with dentists around the world. I've done a podcast with the main person, Howard Farron, there. So if anybody wants to hear my views on dentistry with somebody across the table, we weren't across the table, it was a webcast, but still, Howard and I looking eye to eye to each other talking, you can just go on Dental Town and type my name in, and there's a podcast there. I've also done for anybody that wants their dentist to see it, I've now shot 2 videos. The first video is already on Dental Town. It's about dental reconstruction, and my second one now is going to be on how I go about examining a patient. So it's all fun to do, and what I'm trying to say is doing online is a good thing to do, and especially the audio.
No, it's really it's a new world. So what do you have on your final thoughts for us?
Live life large.
Yeah. It's true. When I look at your travels and you travel combined with making a speech here or there, that I'm sure defrays your expenses somewhat. Nobody should say that you're not a smart cookie. But when I look at that, you live life large. In fact, almost everybody that we interview, I just had Jeff Fawcett, an old friend of mine. He's in the insurance business. Well, every year he's a month in Italy, and but when he works, and then when he plays, he plays. Right?
Yeah. Well, I'm always a little humble when people ask me that question, because as I always like to say, I always look at the world as always being the glass half full. And as I always like to say, the only time my glass is half empty is when I'm on vacation.
Well, with that great thought, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for coming in. I know that this is not really a real estate session, but your body is real estate, right? Your whole body is of the utmost importance, right? So dentistry is for the layman always some sort of a secret thing that happens. You make it possible to, if not enjoy it, to endure is not the right word, no, tolerate, to go through it knowing that you're in good hands.
Oh, definitely. We have to be proactive about our healthcare, our diet, our general health, and one the fancy buzzword for those that might want to look it up is called epigenetics, EPI genetics. And it's how our bodies can adapt to diet and everything else, maybe even reversing some of our bad habits to try to help our bodies, give us more longevity, for example.
No, sounds good.
Yes.
Great to see you. So the listeners, thank you for listening. If you are interested in any other OzBuzz podcasts, we are now on iTunes, and we are actually on 4 other podcast services, whichever you might want to like. Just go to OzBuzz, OzBuzz.ca. You're probably on it right now, but if you haven't been, all of our podcasts are featured there, together with our blog, which is primarily real estate, of my own very quirky view of the world. Have a great day, and as Mike says, live life large.